Corporate Democrats and Republicans are blocking a move to prevent the further destruction of Yemen. The bipartisan push to end U.S. support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen has gained political momentum but faces resistance from the number 2 Democratic lawmaker in the House, Representative Steny Hoyer. Resolution 81, the resolution sponsored by Representative Ro Khanna, Justice Democrat, Walter Jones, a Republican, Mark Pocan, Tom Massey, and 34 other lawmakers, utilizes a provision of the War Powers Act to swiftly terminate U.S. military assistance for the Saudi-led war effort. Several activists working to build support for the measure have told The Intercept that Republican caucus leaders and Hoyer, the minority whip, are pressuring lawmakers to avoid sponsoring the legislation. The political opposition comes as new reports reveal that the Saudi-backed military coalition's constant bombing of Yemen's civilian infrastructure, as well as the blockade of Yemen's port, has resulted in one of the worst humanitarian crises of the 21st century. Nearly a quarter of the country's 28 million residents are living in starvation, and thousands, mostly children, are dying of cholera as shipments of food and medicine have been prevented from reaching Yemen. Advocates are concerned that lawmakers are being pressured against ending the conflict for fear of alienating U.S. allies in the region. Saudi Arabia, notably, has pledged to purchase $100 billion in weapons from American contractors, including companies such as Lockheed Martin and Boeing, that have wide sway on Capitol Hill. The concurrent resolution compels President Donald Trump to remove U.S. military forces from the hostilities in Yemen within 30 days. The resolution draws upon a provision of the War Powers Act passed through a congressional override over former President Richard Nixon's veto designed to rein in unauthorized foreign wars. So, this is quite a story because the number 2 Democrat, Steny Hoyer, is the one who's really blocking this. A Democrat is blocking the move to prevent our aiding and abetting of the bloodbath in Yemen. Okay, the situation in Yemen is as dire as it gets. I just told you, people are starving to death. People are dying from preventable illness because medicine's being stopped, being blockaded. They can't get medicine in. They can't get food in. That's what Saudi Arabia is doing. We're sitting by as women and children starve to death. Then we haven't even gotten into the fact of the sides in this war. So, you know, the Houthis are the ones, they're Shia militants who took over the government in Yemen. Well, guess who's on the ground fighting against the Houthis? It's Sunni militias. Who are those Sunni militias? Al-Qaeda. So Saudi Arabia is using Al-Qaeda on the ground as their foot soldiers, and we are aligning with Al-Qaeda in the fight. Why on earth would we do that? Well, you heard it here. We do that because we don't want to make our friends in the region mad, our allies in the region. So yes, let's watch as they starve a country to death, as people die of preventable illnesses. Let's watch as they bomb open-air markets, mosques, hospitals, schools. They even bombed a school for the blind. And by the way, as this happens, people can see after the fact that these are U.S. weapons. It says made in the USA on the bombs that are, killing their family members and their friends. So we are aiding and abetting an atrocity, a genocide. And you have some good Democrats and even some Republicans standing up going, you know what? How about we don't do this? Because Saudi Arabia is an extremist terror state and we shouldn't be allied with them and we shouldn't be doing their bidding so that our defense contractors can make more money. We shouldn't be doing this for business reasons. And what's happening? Most of the Republicans obviously are like, yeah, whatever. Shut the fuck up. And Steny Hoyer. Hey, Steny, how do you sleep at night? Knowing that it's your actions, yes, your actions that are perpetuating a genocide. And that's not hyperbole. That's what you're doing. As good Democrats like Ro Khanna are stepping up and saying, whoa, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? We're de facto aligned with Al-Qaeda in this situation. we're arming a state that is just brazenly taking out civilians and they don't care. We're sitting there as a country starving to death. So basically, the U.S. is acting like a terror state along with Saudi Arabia, and Steny Hoyer is in favor of that. You know, it reminds me of a Noam Chomsky quote that, you know, people at first glance, there are many people who aren't ready for that quote yet because you need to be... That's like a few steps down the line in terms of, you know, learning the facts and getting the groundwork laid so that you can accept the reality of that quote. But Noam Chomsky says that there's an easy way to stop terrorism. Stop participating in it. So, you know, the U.S., we love to pretend like we're the world police and we believe in, you know, altruism and justice and human rights. Well, obviously that's comical because we act like any, you know, empire ever. It's more about power. It's more about maintaining our business connections and being the sole superpower and dominance and hegemony, however the fuck you say it. But this is an instance where you can see clearly what Noam's talking about. Because he's saying, oh, you want to stop terrorism, right? All the administrations, Republican, Democrat, we will be the protectors of human rights and we will stop terrorists. Really? Then call off your own deal with Saudi Arabia. Call off your bombing with them and mapping out the places where they do bomb. Call off the blockade, which you can do. Apply diplomatic pressure to them, which you can do. But no, you're not doing that. You're holding hands with them and frolicking on the beach as they act like a terror state and you act like one with them. So you want to stop terrorism? Stop participating in it. And that's what Representative Ro Khanna is saying. Stop participating in it. Stop arming them. Stop backing them. Stop. Look at the humanitarian crisis and toll that's happening on Yemen, and you don't care. And most Republicans are like, I love it. I'm totally fine with that. Trump, who used to say Saudi Arabia was responsible for 9/11, is like, oh, what are you kidding? They hold my hand and they whisper sweet nothings in my ear, and I love them now, and they can do whatever they want. And now even Steny Hoyer, top Democrats, are like, what? Got to keep the corruption and the bribery and the status quo going. So they buy a lot of weapons from us. So we're going to look out for them and try to block these radical do-gooders who say, hey, let's stop arming this terror state and helping them. I literally don't know how guys like Steny Hoyer sleep at night. I don't know how the majority of the Republicans who are in favor of this continued destruction of Yemen and aiding and abetting a genocide, I don't know how they sleep at night. I don't know how Donald Trump sleeps at night. Because Donald Trump especially repeatedly over and over said Saudi Arabia responsible for 9/11, Saudi Arabia responsible for 9/11, they're the number one problem, they're the number one problem. And then when he became president, I think that was the first place he visited. He got endless gifts from them. He's doing a $110 billion weapons deal with them. So he went back on everything he said. And he acts like a standard establishment neocon bitch boy. So, you know, from a guy who seemed to know better on this issue, it just shows he has no core. He has no, fundamental decency. He has no boundaries. He'll go back on whatever. Because he's like, hey, I'm in the office now, so forget everything I ever said. Now I'll just act like every other president acted. It's pathetic. And credit to Ro Khanna and everybody else who is trying to stop the destruction of Yemen. But Democrats like Steny Hoyer need to get on board. What a pathetic excuse Steny Hoyer is. Because this guy is old and worn down by Washington to the point where he's just corrupt. He's a corrupt status quo politician who's unwilling to think outside the box and really try to make this world a better place.